At this moment, I've been drowned by a fountain of knowledge, simply because I have some very phenomenal HR personalities joining me for this panel discussion. First among them is a seasoned HR practitioner, an SHRM SCP, senior certified professional with 16 years of experience in HR and leadership. He's the immediate past group human capital director for Broad Spectrum Group. Prior to his engagement with the Just One group of companies, Kwame was the head of human resources at Taka Energy, based in the power generation enclave of Abaya in Takoradi. He led the acquisition and merger exercise for Airtel Tigo in the capacity of Chief Human Resource Officer. From ATC, he joined Airtel Ghana as head of HR operations and business partner, commercial functions, and was later, in 2016, elevated to Human Resource Director for Airtel Ghana. Joined PZ Cousins as HR manager, employee relations, then to Vodafone Ghana as employee relations specialist before moving to American Towers as senior human resource manager in 2013. He's had 15 successful years in leading talent management, human resource leadership, human capital strategy development, and execution. He consistently delivers excellent leadership, business acumen, communication, critical thinking skills, and relationship management abilities. Permit me to welcome Dr. Kwame Annor. So a round of applause for Dr. Kwame Annor, ladies and gentlemen. So we can still see a lot of applause going on. Also joining us, she needs no introduction. You just heard from her. Ashiokai Akrong from Vodafone Ghana. A round of applause for her as well. Thank you very much. Then finally, we have another gentleman who is the Human Capital Executive at Old Mutual Ghana. He's passionate about empowering employees and maximizing their potential to achieve organizational excellence. He's a certified human resource professional with over 10 years of human resource experience. He's also a certified cultural orientation and navigation coach from Berlitz in the USA. A round of applause for Mr. Jehoshaphat Abaya. Thank you. I feel very honored to be in the presence of such behemoths when it comes to HR. Probably by the time I leave here, I'll be a specialist myself, hopefully. So we're going to launch ourselves straight into the conversation. Akole Bule will be joining us as well, so we'll direct some of the questions at her. We want to look, first of all, at what an economic crisis is. Now, economic crisis means a lot to different people. To the guy down the road in Adabraka, it means he can't buy his usual portion of gobe and plantain. To another person, it means he's unable to buy fuel simply because it's much more expensive because the dollar has broken jail and is running very quickly. Now, to an organization in downtown Accra, it means their expenses have increased, and which would affect a lot of their cash flow. It would also affect how they recruit, retain, and train. So it's a lot to a lot of different people. So we're going to look at it from your perspectives. First, starting with you, Kwame. What necessarily does an economic crisis mean to organizations?
Thank you very much. Typically, what is happening is organizations are struggling to survive because of the fact that they're unable to deliver their services as expected. And again, those who are supposed to participate, the value they are creating are unable to participate or partake. So what happens? Organizations are about dying.
Looking at this from Kwame's perspective, Ashiokai, where he's more or less intimating that organizations are dying. Are they dying in respect to operations? Are they dying in respect to the fact that they're just struggling to stay afloat? Is it just about the cash flow, or it's about the sustainability of the organization?
So I'll go back to what Kwame said regarding defining the economic crisis, and it does blend into then the economic stability, right, of either a company, country, etc. But the fundamentals are the same. So basically, if you look at what really leads to economic crisis or economic instability, or the stability of the organization, you're looking at some factors that you haven't really, thought was coming, but then all of a sudden happens, and then it shakes the very foundation of the organization. And it could be things like, recent example we have is the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So that really shook organizations to their core. Another example is if you have, let's say, a really key customer, right, who provides a lot of your revenue, who jumps ship immediately to go to your competitor, etc. Some of these things all can lead to economic crisis and then instability. Now, in the organization, you have to look at things like your talent pool as well, and what is happening there. And if you have to add that to the crisis situation, the economic crisis situation, then you have a double-edged sword and things that you have to really pay attention to. So there are factors, but you always have to be in a position to look out into the future. What are some of the things that could happen to my organization, right? Looking at trends, and then what is the plan, right? What's the business continuity plan in case something like that happens? And then you draw from that.
So, Jehoshaphat, looking at plans and innovation, etc., aren't organizations overemphasizing on economic crisis? Aren't they just making excuses? Are they really in a crisis, considering the fact that organizations are set out to be innovative enough to solve problems? In fact, every organization exists to solve a problem. So are they not just overemphasizing it?
Thank you for the question. Being very practical, I think the answer is yes and no. You may find a few who are making excuses, but the realities on the ground show that organizations are going through a crisis. Ashiokai just mentioned the COVID-19 pandemic, but today we are also faced with a myriad of issues, exchange rates, even there's a people crisis. So today we talk about the great resignation. A lot of people have redefined what work and satisfaction means to them. And these are the people organizations strive on. Without them, there are no organizations. So internally, as far as the people market is concerned, there's a crisis. As far as economy is concerned, there's a crisis. You look at the geopolitical situation in the world, and indeed there is a crisis. But as you rightly said, organizations are not there just to say, hey, there's a crisis, so I fold my arms. And that's where and why we are here today to talk about what HR professionals can do to make sure that organizations are still afloat, their heads are way high above the water, and they are not sinking.
Okay, staying with you, Jehoshaphat. Now, for a lot of organizations, based on the structure and how they are set out, not just based on perceptions from the outside, HR is the key cog of every organization. An organization cannot exist without its people, and it can't exist functionally without its people functioning at their optimum. Ideally, for a lot of these crises, they must not just affect the organization, they must affect the individuals within the organization as well. Do you think so?
It's very true. It impacts the individuals because they are also within the economy, they are also within the system. So the guy who well his car and then just drive to work 5 days a week suddenly would tell you that, can I work from home? Not because he doesn't want to be in the office, but he looks at the situation. He's supposed to come in every day. That's going to hit him hard. So individuals within the organization are also experiencing this, and that's why we need to work together. HR should not be just in a closed office. You need to go down, understand the people, know what the people are going through, because you are also going through it. So the likelihood is that your employees are also going through it. And so find a solution together, the organization supports, and then everything changes from that angle. But individuals within the business also go through these challenges.
Ashiokai, empathy, ideally what he's underlining, should definitely feature very prominently within organizations when it comes to times like these. Because ideally, we are not just looking at the organization surviving, we are looking at the people within the organization surviving as well. I mean, how crucial is empathy in times like these?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, it is crucial. And underneath that is also communication, frequent communication to the organization, because if they don't understand what is going on, the challenges that are facing the organization, and business leaders don't paint a true picture of what is going on, all they see is spend, right? They see even advertising spend then becomes, something they can criticize. Oh, you people are saying there's no money, but then we see this going on, we see this going on. But if business leaders are able to step up and have frank conversations with the people saying, hey, this is what we did last year, or this is what we did last month, year-on-year growth is declining, or it's, it's stable, it's not really growing, and our OPEX is growing. These are the issues that we really need to tackle. So you, cost center owner, what are some of the practical things that we can do to reduce OPEX? You in the sales field, you in marketing, what are some of the things that you can do to generate revenue? And have that open conversation so that everybody is on the same page and moving in the same direction. But because otherwise then it shows that there's no empathy, and employees get up one day where the situation has gone so bad and you're inviting them to make them redundant. So I think that it's crucial.
So Kwame, Hannah made a very important point about communication. And when it comes to organizations, especially when things are quite challenging, I mean, the flow of communication is very important. But then the flow of communication should also be based on the realities on the ground. A lot of times, you think top management falters are making sure that these realities are made known to staff. And using that as a preamble, how do you think these can be projected to solve some of the problems that arise in circumstances like these?
Thank you. It is critical to communicate. Tell the bare truth unapologetically to employees what is in there before it is too late. If you do not, then the assumptions will hold that yes, there's money. Managers are driving their Land Cruisers and Prados. If you can afford, then why can't you afford? And it boils down to a particular skill, that is change management. We start from telling the people the realities, what is happening, the need to bring a particular action, and listen all of them along, and to bring that change. Without that and creating the awareness of the existence of the challenge, nobody believes you. And that creates another level of a whole crisis for the organization. And it leads to apathy instead. It affects the engagement levels and the commitment of the individuals towards the advancement of the organization. So technically, open the books, telling people what it is, unapologetically is a better option, as Madam said, than to wait for the last minute to take an action.
I mean, for all the contributions, they've been geared towards building bridges. And in building bridges, it means we go together as organizations to surmount a lot of these challenges. Now, Ashiokai, for a lot of you in practice, when it comes to human resource management, these can be very challenging times, both internally and externally. Now, organizations very much have the power internally to deal with things. Externally, a lot of times you do not. How do we mitigate a lot of the external circumstances and to ensure that we are maintaining that foothold to stay sustainable?
To be a sustainable business, you have to be ready for anything that can happen to the organization. So in building that resiliency, you put in place plans that, okay, if this happens, it's not everything that you can foresee, right, in the future. But what are some of the things? What are we putting together as a business continuity plan so that if this happens, this is how the organization will react, this is how business leaders will lead the organization and steer the organization. Like you said, there is a limit to what you can do with external forces and reacting to them like quickly, instantly. But internally, you have more control. It all comes, and if you're able to build an employee population that understands that the organization cares about them, right? That in times that were good, the organization was doing this and this and this. then you've built that goodwill that you're able to tap into when times are tough and ask employees that, oh, this is what's going on. These are some of the things that we want to put on hold. These are, for example, one benefits that I want to put on hold for now. And let's see how the tide turns in the next quarter or in the next year. Then, because you've built that goodwill with people, they know that they can trust what you're saying. And that, when the times were really good, you shared those with them as well. So we should be able to kind of round off your question, you should, as an organization, be able to build a strategic plan that takes into consideration some of these things that happen. And sometimes technology has been very helpful for us as well. I mean, look at, when COVID-19 happened, and within a couple of days, literally organizations, some organizations were able to set up their employees working remote, right? I mean, I remember we had to do it in 2 days. Literally 98% of our employees were started working from home, including our call center. So you have to be able to be resilient enough and build that into your plan as an organization, so that you can respond well when these crises happens.
Okay, so continuing on that point, I spoke about how internally we had a lot of control, and externally we didn't seem to have a lot of control. I'm going to contradict myself very briefly. I hope you don't mind. Over the years, advocacy has been a very key tool for a lot of industries when it comes to influencing policy. Now, within the realms of HR, I mean, there's a school of thought that has intimated that there hasn't been enough advocacy when it comes to a lot of policy change when it comes to HR. Bearing in mind that that is a very key factor in determining whether an organization is able to turn the tide or not, because I mean, externally, whether you like it or not, there are certain influences that you individually cannot control. Jehoshaphat, have we, as a fraternity, advocated enough as a unit?
Thank you for the question. I think we've done well, but not excellently. In Ghana, we don't see much of this being done. I know it happens in the background a lot. I remember when this e-levy policy was coming up, I was one of the people who wrote to Ghana Employers Association. And the feedback was, oh yes, a number of your colleagues have already approached us and there's work underway so that corporates and organizations would not have to bear that e-levy because of the kind of service they are providing to the nation. So it happens, but we don't hear much about it. And I think it's high time, like the Ghana Bar Association and others who are always out there, we can feel as an HR fraternity, we are also out there and our voices are heard. We can no longer keep quiet on what we do.
Same question to you, Kwame. Do you think we are advocating enough, or there's a lot more we can do?
I think we've come a long way, honestly. The HR community hasn't been bad at all. I've not been sleeping. The question is, has policymakers listened to the HR professionals? Today, if you ask me to advocate right now here, one of the things I would change is to really look at our social security policy. Assuming I have 300,000 Ghana cedis sitting in my tier 2 as we speak. 5 weeks ago or 5 months ago, a dollar equivalent, maybe it was $25,000. Today, what is happening to it? 1 is to 10. It means that the value of the amount is gone. What are we proactively doing about that? For me, that's what I'm looking out to see. But for general policy, trust me, you've seen what Osingame has done over the period of time, what other HR professionals, Lene itself, its contribution to the HR focus and opportunity to speak to almost CEOs. And we've done something has been done. But the question is, how critically do we advocate in times of crisis to save the employee? For me, that's my concern. But we haven't done badly at all. That's my view.
So staying with you, I mean, looking at the employee, we are looking at how to mitigate these crises and remain sustainable. And what do you think can be done for that employee? Because collectively, the employees make up the organization. What can be done for the employee?
The HL's laziest approach has always gone down to the redundancy routes. That's what we used to do. But I think there's a way out. Instead of just jumping into going into history redundancy programs. My thinking is that one, we need to look at how work is done. Very critical. We need to look at individuals, their skills, competences, and reassign them where they are not creating value to where they can add value. That's one. Number two, as my colleague rightly said, assuming I live at Kaswa and I have to trek or the view commute from Kaswa to Accra on daily basis. Today, my salary cannot support that. What do you do for me? It's not a big thing at all. Maybe you set up a satellite office at Kaswa, a hot desk, and people who really want to work from Kaswa need to formally sign in, agree on performance agreement with their bosses, and they work from where? Kaswa. Not every day. What we have done is to mitigate the cost of transportation. One thing that all of us, we are losing sight of is the fact that what is happening today is in fact affecting our mental health. We quickly need to do something about it. The fear, the anxiety of probably losing my job because my manager is not talking to me, managers are not talking to me, the board is not interested in what is happening, the CEO is confused and looking at the bottom line, and I've been neglected. What do we do? It creates anxiety, and anxiety leads to stress, and stress leads to burnout. And ultimately, what will happen is performance of the entire organization will crumble. And what will be the bottom line? Dead and gone. So that's my view.
Definitely. I mean, that's impressive. Now, Jehoshaphat, he made a very interesting point about performance and it crumbling. And in times like these, we do not want to even think about that happening. And we're looking at ways to make sure that we improve performance. He suggested a certain degree of agility where organizations can be more innovative in making sure that they do not only make their staff happy, but once their staff are happy, performance levels increase, companies are more profitable, etc. I mean, aside agility, can you prefer any more strategies that would enable organizations to ensure that that productivity remains at an optimum level?
Thank you for the question. We've spoken about communicate. There comes a time, and it should actually be part of everyday work, where we work with employees to find a solution. First, we need to get into the minds of the employees. Let's all together look at the business strategy. We exist first as an organization to be profitable. Without the organization, we would all not be within that organization. So the people must be aware of that. Now, what can organizations do? A lot has been spoken about technology and how we can use it. We need to go through the HR cycle. When it comes to recruitment, what can we do? We are in a crisis situation. Do we go business as usual? Do we have to do some apps that will help us to get the right people? And for me, I am big on getting the right people because people are expensive. So get the right people, get the right technology. That's one thing you can do when it comes to recruitment. Sometimes it may cost you a bit to get in the right person, but once they are on the seat, you see the value that comes from it. So we need to take each process, rethink about it. It worked yesterday. Is it still working? Should it still be the same? You can have people sitting anywhere in the world working for you. Must it be a physical interview? All those factors you need to consider. So in the recruitment space, yes, getting the right people, because the organization exists because of its people. And so the people you bring in must be the quality you need. So getting the right people, one, give them the right resources. It's a no-brainer. You bring in the people, you are paying them a lot. They don't have the tools to work with. So get them the right resources so that they are able to deliver for you and have frank conversations. Again, in every organization, you may find people who are not pulling up their weight. Oh, and the economy and this, we are all in it. But performance management must be key. It must be up there. If they are not pulling their weight, they can go home and sit and cry from the house. Other people come in, they help the business to go on. These are a few I'd mention. I'm sure my colleagues.
Sure, Hannah wants to add some things to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. So again, you have to look at what options you can give employees. And in order to do that, you have to listen to them and see what is important to them, especially in an economic crisis. It's not, you don't have unlimited budget. I always tell my employees, the budget is the budget, okay? But we can be creative with what we have. So for example, if you're currently working 3 days from home and I give you, let's say, fuel allowance, or I pay for your fuel, right, to come to the office 5 days a week. Now, can we channel that budget that we have somewhere else for you? Utility, increase in utility almost 27%. So can we channel some of that for you? And so we have to be creative with our employees as well. And sometimes they come up with the innovative solutions, right, for us to implement. Because especially in these times, you need discretionary effort. You need that discretionary effort from everyone to enable the organization to move forward. A recent trend that is going on social media, I think it was started from TikTok for the last couple of weeks, is what they call quiet quitting, right? So this phenomenon where the youth are saying, I'm going to do my 9 to 5, I'll put in what I have to put in, anything else you're not going to get from me, okay? Because you are saying that times are hard. You are not going above and beyond to try and listen to some of the things that I'm saying and give me what I'm saying. And so I will do my work, but in the past where I would, for example, stay to work on an extra project, be pulled into different things, that was affecting my well-being as well. So on the feet of coming from the pandemic, working from home, and wellness and all of that stuff, people are beginning to think about their health more, and it doesn't help too with this economic crisis. And I mean, you are saying that I am going to do what I can, but discretionary efforts. So, quiet quitting is a phenomena that we have to talk about, so that we have to really find what can we do to enable, to unlock that discretionary effort from our employees.
Definitely. I mean, Kwame, I think you want to add to that as well. It's just fair that you could.
The economic crisis has its own impact. We are all aware what will happen. There's going to be what I call the deacceleration in terms of compensation reviews, salary increases. Now, we need the HR professionals and leaders to be very proactive in engaging the unions and the labor organizations, or things are going to change dramatically, and you need to bring them on board. They need to understand and appreciate the impact of what we are going through in stabilizing organizations, and then list them on board. Without that, one day, we've seen skirmishes of it, where labor says, you are looking for that. At the gunpoint, if you don't give me, you are not working. I won't mention anybody's name, but it happened in our country. And those in private sector, they've seen it. They've watched. They think they can do the same. So this crisis is going to create some sort of change. And that change requires that, in fact, the relationships between employers and the labor unions are also recalibrated to bring them on board, to understand they need to partner for the survival of the organizations in which they all work in. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Jehoshaphat, do you think this is a time to critically look at organizational culture as well? Because bear in mind, things might have changed because of the economic crisis. And key reason why we are seated here today is to look for ways and means by which organizations can mitigate this and stay sustainable. Do you think the time is right now for organizations to consider certain cultural changes?
I think the time is apt, or maybe the time was yesterday. So we are one step behind. Organizations need to relook at the culture. We need a culture that ensures that we have the right structure with the right people in it. So today there are a lot of people who are coming out of school, and all of them are multi-talented. So you have somebody who did plant medicine, University of Ghana, but the lady can program, C# and all that. So multi-talented. But if our organizations are all, you need to have a first degree, this, second degree, this, and the culture is inhibiting, you don't get these people to come in and give of their best. Again, before we can even remodel, we need to know where we are going. And HR professionals, I'm glad some of the panel members have already mentioned it, must understand the business. Don't go and speak your HR language and turn over this. Understand the business and where the business is going to. That will ensure that you are bringing in people who will help the business to go there and will build the right culture. Culture changes. Change is the only constant, as has been said. So we need to make sure that we have a culture that supports where we are going to. And HR's role there is very critical.
Definitely. Now, Kwame, in changing culture as well, I believe we should be looking at a lot of value-adding activities. I mean, things that would ensure that productivity is at its best. I mean, we've mentioned a few going forward. I want us to just pick out your top two value-adding activities that we feel would propel organizations to the next level, especially in a time like this.
I think critically, one would be developing leadership skills, because the last year's skills we used to navigate organization is no longer there because of the changes that we are seeing. The scenarios we built as assumptions for which yesterday's strategy were built are no longer valid, or somewhat no longer valid. It requires that we build the skills of these leaders and competencies of these managers to be able to navigate, build scenarios, and quickly see how they can work with HR professionals to also adapt to their human capital strategies to support the changes in overall business strategy. For me, that is key. The next thing is manager-employee relations. It is critical. The time control and command system no longer works. In crisis period, there's so much frustration in people, and therefore empathy today is more critical as organizational culture than ever. If you're a mother, you should be a mother at work as well, because employees are looking up to you. If you're a father, you should be a father as well, when you need to ensure that your relationship with the employee is apt, so that one, they can trust you and come to you and support you to achieve your departmental goals. For me, these two are critical changes we need to bring to our settings.
Definitely. I mean, two fantastic nuggets. We'll pick two from you as well, Ashiokai.
So Kwame touched on how important it is to have that relationship, especially from the manager. And the role of the line manager, I mean, cannot be overemphasized, especially now, because you have sometimes big organizations and you can't reach everybody. But the line manager, let's say, has 5 to 10 people, right, that they can impact directly. And they do, either negatively or positively on a day-to-day basis. And so if you're trying to especially unlock that discretionary effort, right? It comes directly to the manager that you're working with. So are they there to listen to what you have? Do they give you the support you need? Do they try very hard to remove obstacles, out of your way for you to do your job? Are they flexible? If you say, I have a situation at home with my child, can I work from home today? Or, can I work some reduced hours? Do they listen? Are they empathetic? Back to the word that we were using. So that is very key. And so we as leaders need to be able to train our line managers now, because their roles have become even more critical, right? As coaches, as mentors, not just supervise and get somebody's work done. It's gone way beyond that. And so they need to be able to mentor, especially when they have remote working teams. How do you support them to manage remote working teams and deal with issues of performance to ensure that, AC Mansa is supposed to be working from home on Fridays and, is not away at some funeral somewhere in Asamakesi. Or if you have agreed for them to do that, within that 4 days that they're supposed to work, do they get everything done? So those are some of the things that managers should have the discretion and should have the judgment to be able to lead these remote organizations. So I believe that's definitely one. I guess another thing that we can look at as well is constantly looking at our policies and seeing where, some policies we put in place when it was really needed. There was a crisis, and so this thing needed to be put in place. Is it still necessary today, right? Or should we look at it and review how it looks like? And then our array of benefits, right? It's like a buffet of benefits that we have. Is it still, relevant? Or are there other things that employees are saying is more important to them? And can we provide that? I remember a few years ago, employees, told us that, well, my spouse has health insurance somewhere, so my health insurance here is almost kind of redundant, right? So how do you respond to that? So then we brought in what we call flexi health plan, so that basically the amount that I pay for you to have health insurance, I then invest it for you. So if you are able to show us, and you have to prove it every year, that your spouse has health insurance that covers you, then you're able to, I am able to then put it in this investment portfolio for you that you can draw on later on. So we have to be open and innovative and nimble enough to have these conversations.
You're talking about innovation and being nimble. A lot of the times we want to put certain systems in place. Tell you a quick story. When I was in Achimota school, we had white tiles and we had black tiles. And Form 1s and Form 2s were not allowed to walk on the white tile. They were only allowed to walk on the black tile. We didn't understand why we didn't have to walk on the white tile. So when the Form 3s were not around, we'd always walk on the white tile just to feel powerful. I don't know what kind of power we derived from that. But we didn't understand the system. We were just going through the paces. How important is it for a lot of HR managers, etc., to ensure that the systems they put in place don't turn up or end up being pseudo systems, but they are systems that actually derive the right results and get the buy-in of their staff? Because bear in mind, we're looking to be more productive.
Thank you. I think, yes, just before I go there, I would also want to touch on what my colleagues have mentioned. I think leadership is very important. It's been said that there are no bad teams, there are bad leaders. So as a leader, you must make sure you are carrying your team along. And if you know you are failing or you see you are failing, then you need to go back to the drawing board or you quit. Again, I think that for us to be relevant going into the future, we need a learning organization. So where everybody is learning and the organization itself is learning. What we learned in school is past. The experience we had is past. So every week, challenge yourself, challenge your team. What new thing is out there? What is shaking the world that we can also pick up on? In terms of the question you asked, I think companies have been here for centuries and years, and they are still thriving. The difference is how you build the next level. So growing your own timber, succession planning, and coaching has been mentioned, mentoring has been mentioned. A lot of the pitfalls the organization had, if it's documented, it is passed down. You have the right people who are there to coach, mentor the youthful, those who are up and coming after us. By the time you are 25, there's somebody who is 15 who can do what you are doing. So if you are 35, 40, and you think that I'm still young, you are no longer young. So we need to mentor the next generation who will take after us. And they would bring the difference, which will make the organization sustainable going into the future. I am very big on that. I think we should focus.
Kwame, I think you want to add something to that.
Whilst you are talking about or thinking about succession planning, then organization quickly need to identify high risk flyers as well.
Very true.
Risk flight today. It's good to flight risk is good to be something very soon we cannot manage. Trust me. Those who leave your very competent hands because they've helped you to navigate the organization through. They are the people the headhunters are looking for. So you need to identify all of them as early as possible and start building relationships around them. And again, like Madam said, you should be bold enough to terminate non-performance. It is critical because they are like poison. They are like cancer. They will grow and eat the fabric of the organization because people will pick their back for them to hang around. So it's critical. Whilst you are looking at succession planning, you need to have great systems in place in identifying your top flyers or your top high potentials. And then You just don't identify them and leave them to walk about. You need to put the programs and execute the programs to make them ready for the next task, if any.
Definitely. I mean, in readying people for tasks, we also look at assessing people's tasks. Performance management is at the very center of any organization's progress, and it's something that we have to critically look at if we already are not critically looking at it. I mean, in times of crisis, a lot of people have argued that the parameters should change. I don't know if you agree with that, Hannah.
The parameters should be such that it's standard, it's fair enough to withstand different things across the organization. Now, what is measured can change. So, for example, if we're going through an economic crisis and people are not spending as much, and I've given you this huge targets to meet for this year, right? And we're seeing the numbers, gradually slow down and things. Is it fair for me to hold you to that same number when I'm evaluating you at the end of the quarter? So those are some of the things that can change, but how I measure it should not change, because an aspect of how I measure it is also your attitude, your behavior, the softer side as well that we measure, and so looking at the organizational culture, this is what we want to reward, and this is what we want to, not to reward. And so those things should not change unless you are deliberately trying to change organizational culture. Then you look at, okay, this is the organization we're trying to create. And so we're going to introduce these parameters that will tease out what people should do, right? And channeling people in that direction or not channeling them in that direction.
Thank you, Jehoshaphat. I'd like to hear your view on that as well.
Yes, I believe in measurements, and I always use the dashboard of the car. There are some things that may not be relevant now, but there are some that you always need to check. Fuel, the temperature of the engine, there are a couple of them. Just imagine driving a car without those things there. And indeed, there are people who drive and do not look at those things anyway.
It's the fight I have with my wife all the time. She just sits in the car and she moves.
Exactly. But that costs money. That is a lot of money, because the day you have an issue, and it's something, if you were measuring, you could have done something about. So performance measures from the person at the security desk all the way to the last person, there should be something that you are being held accountable for. And we don't wait till the end of the year. I hate that process. At least every quarter, review what you set out to do. There should be weekly meetings within teams, which is going up. The measures should be at the right levels. Don't also add people with everyday meetings, everyday, let's measure this. It should be at the right levels. And once everybody is playing their part, you can see, like the dashboard, whether your fuel is going down or you have enough to reach Kumasi, and then you do something about it. So I'm very big on that. I think what would make our companies change, what will make our country change is if these measures are taken seriously. If I'm a minister, there are KPIs I need to live up to. At the end, if I don't live up to, I'm gone. Another person comes in. If I work in public sector, there should be something you shouldn't just be paid every month. But that's what we see. People put their bags down and they're out. Oh, I'm checking something now.
They call it the ministry's mentality.
Yeah, but that's what is killing the country. And that's what's killing organizations. So line managers should also be big on these things. Sometimes when HR professionals speak about this, they say, you people are theory, we are here to sell. But if you don't know what you are selling, you can't even account for what you've sold. How do we know we are meeting our target? So it should be a collaborative effort.
Kwame, I'd like to take your thoughts on that as well.
My personal view has always been the fact that sometimes we cut and paste performance management systems which are not aligned to our businesses, the overall strategy and other things. So I work in Vodafone. I know the Vodafone performance standards. I have the templates. I know the language. I pick. Once I go to Forestry Commission, I dump it there and I start running with it. You will fail. You work in an insurance company, they have their philosophies, they have their strategies. Then you pick what we call OKRs. Then you go in there, you dump it as a philosophy or performance management system. You fail. My advice is let's look at our context, our business, our strategy, and devise or select a performance management system that serves our purpose. Once that is done and we all understand the philosophy, it changes how people embrace it. It is so cumbersome for my environment and I can't even set the KPIs or OKRs. What happened? It becomes disincentive for the manager, let alone monitoring. But what I say also is that we've left this for only the CEO, the functional heads. The board must also get involved in performance management. If you want to stabilize this nation, the CEO of this nation, the president, must be involved in the performance management of CEOs in government organizations. Fire a few of them. The boss must be accountable for what is happening there. The same way, our enterprises, the business, private businesses, the boss must be involved and ensure people are performing. They are doing what they say they will do, and they are being rewarded for what they have done. Not Ashiokai is a HR director. She drives a Land Cruiser. She's a performer. Me, I'm not a performer. I'm not doing well because I'm an HR director. I'm not driving a Land Cruiser. Guys, this won't work. We need to change the philosophy and contextualize whatever we do in terms of performance management and systems. I think we'll be fine.
Definitely. So the final round of questions, we're going to talk about analytics and how these analytics, both internally and externally, would affect productivity. Now, analytics are very, very important when it comes to understanding the texture of a business, both now, tomorrow, and the day after. I'm starting with you, Kwame, once again. I mean, how important are analytics? What extent should we take analytics to, and how does it directly affect productivity?
Thank you. I think any organization where the analytics ability of managers have been outsourced to the finance team is a dysfunctional organization because they generate the analytics and interpret for you, then there's a problem. So if HR cannot put together its own analytics and understand the predictive nature in the future, what we need to take us to the next level and to put policies and programs based on informed decision based on data, then there's a problem. For me, HR decision must be based on something, and that something is what? Analytics. The outcomes of your analytics would give you pointers as to where to go. Let me give you an instance. I work for a small organization where all the employees, in terms of age demographics, they were 25 years. Now, then somebody says, well, let's put a particular compensation structure in place. This package, in fact, it was geared towards old people going for pension. So if you do not do your analytics, because the needs are different. The 50-year-old man, the needs are different. The young man today, his needs are different. But when you do proper analysis, provide you with the insight as to what compensation structure, for instance, you should put in place in order to serve the people. So you can't survive without predictive analytics. It is critical for survival and taking us away from where we are today to stabilize our businesses.
Definitely. I'd like to take your thoughts as well on this, Ashiokai.
Sure. We have so much data that is available to us now. But if we don't have the ability to analyze the data, use it to predict, use it to, go to business meetings, go to our boards and say, this is the trend we're seeing, this is what is happening, then it's completely useless. So analytics is extremely important. I think I spoke at an event last year, I think the end of last year, and I was talking about business HR analytics, and that it is a key feature of HR of being equipped as a true HR business partner. And there's so many free courses that are available online for us to train ourselves in understanding what it means, what are some of the things that, the data that you can analyze, what are trends that you can look for, etc. We set up a HR analytics team in my HR team, and the work that they're doing to, look at a certain data set. So I'll give you an example. So this year, looking at our employee engagement survey, driving it down to which employee population, right? So comparisons between those who just joined in the first year versus those who have been here 3 to 4 years or 4 to 5 years. What are some of the trends that we're seeing in their responses, in their engagement level, what they're saying regarding the organization, and all of that stuff. So they're able to quickly pull that information and other data sets as well, which I then can present to Exco and say, hey, these are some of the things, this is a worrying trend that we need to keep an eye on. And then, it helps with decision making as well. So HR analytics is well, not just HR analytics, but I mean, it's hugely, hugely important.
Thank you very much, Jehoshaphat.
Yes. Everything we know about people, if we call ourselves HR people, is data. Name, age, where they live, it's all data. But before you can make any sense out of it, it has to be analyzed. It's just like going to the hospital and you need to do a lab test. It comes back with information for the doctor to know exactly where to tackle. Else you just be on every and any pill. So as HR professionals, we shouldn't just say, oh, we have the data, we have the data. As has already been mentioned, we need to make sure that that data is not just data, but turn it around. Let it speak to you, let it give you insights. And that is what would help to make that decision. So every decision must be based on data. Every decision you make as an individual should be based on data. Whether at home, at work, at church, wherever you find yourself, it's data you have, but turn it around and use it for your good. We cannot run away from this. And like Kwame said, if you're relying on someone, how do you know if the person is actually telling you the truth? So you also need to make sure that within your teams and you yourself, you are well equipped when it comes to understanding what the data is saying, what are the trends, what is the Pareto saying, so that you don't waste all your resources in a particular space when actually you just need to touch a few things here and it will give you the biggest results. But I think that if we don't learn, so we need to be a learning organization. Set time aside to learn as head of HC. Give your time to learn. The organization itself must learn. If you are the CEO, ask people last week, what did you learn that was different from what you've been doing every week? It should be a learning organization. And as we put that together, we apply data science.
Definitely. I mean, that was phenomenal. I feel very overwhelmed by all the solutions that we've proffered so far. So for all HR professionals, HR managers, HR directors that are listening in and watching us, I'm sure by now we have a stockpile of solutions to enable us get out of this economic crisis that we find ourselves in. I'm very, very, very elated to have had these wonderful people. I wish you could give them a round of applause at home, wherever you are. You hardly ever get this caliber of people together sharing knowledge with you. But at HR Focus, we believe in thought leadership. We believe in ensuring that we make the space a better place for all of you, for all of us that you work and superintend over. We will take your questions as well. So if you do have any questions, please do type them in the chat box. Even if we are unable to answer them today, we would ensure that we would answer them for you, because we are constantly in touch. We are one big family of people that love HR and everything around HR. So, do you have any questions in the chat box yet? Okay, so you can still keep sending your questions in. Like I said, we'll be more than happy to answer them. So thank you very much, Kwame Annor. Thank you. A round of applause for Kwame Annor, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Ashiokai. Thank you very much. The lady I call the superstar. And thank you very much, Jehoshaphat. Thank you very much. So we'll take a very quick break.